Hello, it's very nice to virtually meet you.
Yes, you too. I've been learning so much about you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm doing lately. So, the next thing I have coming up is a launch for my class Influence, which is a class on mastering practical magic. And I'm also getting ready to launch my podcast, Super Connectors. And my friend just coming to visit me. His name is Fu Connor. And I know that sounds kind of Asian, but he's actually a white boy from West Virginia. And Fu is, it's like a coding nickname because he's a cool anarchist coder.
Wow.
He's coming to join me, and Super Connectors is all about the art of connecting. So networking, relationships, how that applies to business and life. So he and I talk about what we know through our careers in networking. Like was one of the people who incited Occupy Wall Street. So that was kind of a big deal in terms
Wow.
of making a viral networked thing happen. And I have experience putting together like international conferences, things like that. So yeah, super connectors and influence. And of course, I also teach an online course on writing for the social web called Thrill. And the launch and the registration for that already happened, but the actual class starts in January. So January is a big month. It's all these three things at once. So those three projects are my main focus right now.
And then you also have the ongoing writing projects, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's Bad Witches Magazine, which is a magazine on magic for smart people. And there's just stuff that comes into my head that I write. And I'm always writing for my courses and answering people's questions. So, yeah.
Were you always interested in these subjects, or was this something that was a slow evolution? Like you were religious when you were little, and then that kind of evolved into spirituality, or how did that work?
I was a straight up witchy little freak from the time I, could toddle around. Like my father totally encouraged this. I like to say my father never met a cult he didn't like. He was in absolutely every weirdo thing in the 1960s you could possibly be involved in.
Like actual cults?
Oh yeah. I mean, if I start telling the stories, this whole interview will turn into like the tale of Carolyn's dad, who's the Forrest Gump of '60s cults. So I'll just summarize, and I'll say like he narrowly dodged dying at Jonestown through his love of chocolate ice cream. Like basically, people were trying to get him to go to Jonestown, and he thought it was cool. Like the Church of the Unification Brotherhood was all about like racial harmony and stuff. And they were like, come with us. We're gonna be in Guyana. It's gonna be awesome. And my dad was like, can I have chocolate ice cream and peanut butter when I'm there? Because he'd gotten kicked out of other cults for eating chocolate ice cream and peanut butter because it wasn't on their macrobiotic diets. And they were like, no. We're going to be out in the middle of the, like, nowhere. We're not going to have electricity. We're going to eat, like, the food that we grow. There's not going to be ice cream, Sonny. And my dad was like, I don't think I want to come.
It's like a cartoon character.
That's my dad. So he encouraged all this stuff in me. He like read the Gnostic Gospels to me when I was in the cradle, and was always telling me like about Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology, and took me to all sorts of witches, Sabbats, and Masonic things, and Rosicrucian things. So every weird esoteric thing that you could manage to be exposed to in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I was brought to. So, and I was totally about it. But even apart from, well, no, I guess it was all intertwined with what my dad was showing me. I would do things, like I remember when I was 4 years old, somebody, I think it was like my great aunt, gave me a rosary, and it was a plastic glow-in-the-dark rosary. And I remember my mom got a new refrigerator, and there was a big refrigerator box in the living room. And I crawled into the refrigerator box, and for days, like the funnest game ever to me was to lay inside the refrigerator box with my glow-in-the-dark rosary and pray for my like resurrection on the next plane, and like imagine like my glorious queendom on the next level of, you know, like glow in the dark pharaoh world that I had. So, and then like when I also as a child, another favorite pretend game, you know, pretend game of mine was witches. I would gather up all the little kids in the neighborhood and I would be like, we're witches and we're making spells. And then we'd go on these weird shamanic journeys that I would create, and I would like lead at sleepover parties. I was the best. I was the most fun you could have at a sleepover party. Because, you know, Ouija boards, scary stories, light as a feather, stiff as a board, Bloody Mary, trippy, like, adventures into the netherworlds. I was all about that. I was so popular until I was, like, 12 years old, and then I became uncool because I was a nerd. But, so yes, I think that answers the question.
Was there a specific moment, though, where you just realized this is what I want to do? I want to make a business out of this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say that was probably a long moment of realizing that I was completely unemployable, that I was like the worst employee ever. Like, if in any situation, I mean, there was maybe once when I worked at a coffee shop and I wasn't that bad, but like I'm a resentful employee. I'm like lazy. I'll probably steal the pens, even though I'll fight with myself. I'll have like an epic moral battle over like not stealing your pens. There's like no. Anyways, I was just completely. Plus, I had spent 7 years getting a PhD in English, which was awesome because it gave me time to read a lot of books and learn how to be a teacher. But at the same time, I realized that I 100% did not want to work in academia. I could not be a professor. That basically I perpetually was offending and scandalizing other people in academia and professors, and they didn't want me around. And I'm like, anyways. So, and then I would try to apply for businessy type jobs, and they would be like, hell, we don't want you. You have a PhD in English. What does that mean? So it was basically like I think it was maybe in the last 2 years of my PhD program, I just had this realization, like, I'm going to have to work for myself. I'm going to have to hustle. How and what am I going to do? How do I do this? So I just started reading, and a lot of what inspired me actually was he's kind of a dick, but I love him, Steve Pavlina. So I tuned in to Steve's wavelength, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. Well, like Steve, and like I really like Hobby Brooks. She has a whole website called The Fluent Self that's really cool. Seeing that, but mostly I can't really emphasize enough, Nicole, how much it was sheer desperation. Like I was standing in line at the food bank in the freezing cold, living on my friends' couches because I quit even my little freelance writing jobs I couldn't stand. I was like, it was a little bit do or die. Like I really. So sometimes I don't know how to tell people how to get motivated because I'm like, I don't know, do you enjoy eating? Like, do you have another route to this? Because I wasn't able to figure one out. Like, if I could have done something, because it's hard, right? It's like I wake up a lot of days, I hustle like 16-hour days of like writing, doing various marketing things, doing interviews, interviewing people. And so if I had some like cushy alternative, I might have done that, but I just didn't. So, but yeah, but something more inspiring than the food bank. Let me think. Well, just you look at people like Oprah or just anybody who's like really awesome and got themselves to a really beautiful place. And you're just like, maybe I could do that. And it was a lot of imbibing a lot of like new thought. I mean, all the range of magical thinking that I've taken in my life told me also that like, hey, right now I'm poor and humiliated, but perhaps through the power of my mind, something else can happen.
I think people stop there. They are like, oh, I'm just going to think about it. I'm not going to do anything.
Oh, good point. Oh, this is a good point. Yeah. So what's interesting is I was just reading that I guess it's like a best-selling book, Girl Boss, by the woman who started Nasty Gal clothing company. It's in like all the fancy bookstores. And I didn't even know about this clothing company, but apparently her clothing company is like one of the fastest growing retailers in the US. And I'm reading her book, and she's talking about the experience of being a woman and being a boss and growing this company. And I get to the chapter on chaos magic. Like, she practices chaos magic. She does sigils and visualization and all this stuff. And I was like, damn, girl, I need to talk to you. I mean, you probably don't have time for me. You're like a billionaire, but maybe. I shouldn't say that. X that out. I'm going to be besties with her.
Yes.
Okay. So I was like, wow, you're amazing. Like, that's exactly, she was talking about using, the thing that really got me is she was talking about using her passwords on her computer as sigils, as like little magical spells that she types 100 times a day, because I do that too. I was like, I thought I was the only one who had magical intention with my passwords. But no, this woman also does, and it totally worked for her. So yeah, that's that. When I emphasize this in my course Influence on practical magic all the time, which is that there's three main components, as I see it, to realizing any magical intention in the world, which is one, you need a mundane channel for it to manifest through. So, for example, I have this business, and I've been doing sigils and wealth magic and mojo bags around the goal of 6 figures, and that is that's happening. That's like a thing that it came about. Now, it didn't come about like it didn't rain down on me just spontaneously from the sky. Like, I created a business with structures and PayPal and QuickBooks and paying assistants and all of this stuff. So I created the channel. But then I did the second part of it is clearing the blocks. So my fear, my shame, all of these like dark, unconscious, shadowy things, get in there, dig those out. That's a major part of magical work. That's the part of magical work that does not get spoken about enough for my taste. Like, all the like law of attraction, new agey stuff is right about a lot, but they're never clear enough about, I mean, in my experience, there's like an excruciating amount of shadow work to be done before good stuff happens, because I can manifest just reflections of my own shadow. Like, I'm so good at manifesting like twisted situations because the manifesting power is there, and because my shadow is like really David Lynch like. So anyways, and then the third part is, of course, like doing the actual spells and rituals and all of the things that ground that energy and intention and, yeah, give it a anchor. It's relatively easy to set an intention or to, start create a mundane channel, but to clear that stuff out, that's the hard part.
Is there one piece of advice that you could give to somebody that is trying to turn something a little bit different into a business?
Great question. So, yeah, the key that I found is getting serious about asking myself, okay, of all this weird stuff that I'm into that I find to be so much fun, where is the place where my interest in this interfaces with what other people want? So that was the long thing that just eluded me for like a long time, was I knew all this great information, but I would just like, if somebody asked me about it, I would start giving them this whole like download about the history of Tibetan Buddhism and like Greek Hellenic mystery religions, because like that was important to me, and I didn't know how to like express it in such a way that it immediately met their desire, their drive, their need for a better love life, a better, financial outlook, whatever. So gradually, so like I used to teach poetry at a college, right? And now I teach a class on writing for the social web. And the cool thing is that hardly anybody walks around and is like, wow, I really want to pay somebody some money right now to teach me to write poetry. I mean, people do, but then they usually go to universities. It's not like just people out in the world who are like, who can I find to give money to help me with my writing? Unless you can show them that, like, well, I will teach you how to write better, and then you will be able to make more money, and you will be able to have more social influence, and you will be able to do all these things that you want to do. Then they're like, okay, yeah, I am willing to pay you money to teach me writing. But if I'm just like, I'll teach you how to write, and then you will write stuff. I mean, that's wonderful, but like people, that's not like necessarily a motivating thing unless I'm already like, right, if I was J.K. Rowling and I'm like, I'll teach you how to write, bitches would be lining up, but I'm not. So goal setting, absolutely. So I am a fanatical writer down of things that seem impossible to me. So for example, or sometimes I get much more modest with it and I exceed it, but I did set a goal that month. I set a goal of 6 figures for this year, which seemed like laughable to me at this time, like in December of 2014, when I was sitting there like, what do I want? And she's well, of course, I want 6 figures. I'm like, well, of course, I'm living in this broken down, freezing place with this abusive boyfriend.
That was a year ago only?
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, the many loves of Carolyn Elliott. I can get myself into a shitty situation with a guy faster than anything. This is like that's my major magical work process that I'm in right now, is changing my having this level with relationships. So I've been out of one for 6 months. Hallelujah. And working on that stuff. But yeah, so I was in this like yucky situation and just feeling hopeless. And I think I was like deathly ill, like no health insurance and a tooth infection and like this close to dying.
Wow.
Charming. Anyways, but I still wrote it down. And then it happened. I mean, and of course, with a whole lot of hustle behind it, right? And a whole lot of like me always having the question in my mind, like, how can I find out more information about what it would take for me to reach this goal? Like, what books should I read? Who should I talk to? What system should I put in place? What could I create that people might want to buy? And for the $10,000 month, I was very specific because I had previously had an $8,000 month over the summer. And I was like, damn, that was great. I would love for that to happen again. And I was like, oh, let's make it a little bit, stretch that a little bit. Like, how about $10,000? I was like, oh, okay, let's see. And then, plunge myself into it. And then the next month, I close to doubled that. So, wow. And then I have a goal for January, which is a completely unreasonable goal that I don't know if I will, come close to or not, but I have a goal of $150,000 in January. So, the hard thing about that is that when I set a goal, like I've like cultivated this in myself, I get really committed to it. Like, hence the 16-hour days, hence like why I'm sitting in paradise and I'm also glued to my computer, which is slightly less than ideal. But right now, at least at this moment in my life, it's also really fulfilling to me because I'm touching a lot of people. Like there's, right now I have about 200 people combined in the 2 classes that I teach. So I get to affect their lives. I get to hear the stories of how they've benefited from what I've shared with them. And that is just like the best. Like that's awesome. And of course, I get to do fun things like a podcast with one of my best friends and interviewing and being interviewed by beautiful souls like yourself. So there's not a whole lot to complain about. But anyways, I guess what I was just saying is like I experience this inner creative tension where once I set a goal, like I can't, like I don't rest until I know that it's well on its way.
And the right kind of goal, because it sounds like in the past you were pursuing things, but it just didn't connect in that way.
Yes, brilliant. Yes, in the past I pursued my PhD, and damn, I did make that happen, and it still couldn't pay the rent. So, like a PhD in English and $5 will get you a cappuccino at Starbucks, right? Like, it doesn't take you too far.
Yeah. You have to be, I feel like you really have to find the thing that you can fully commit to, which is difficult. It's extremely difficult. Were there any like sort of astrological things that were happening, like specifically with that $10,000 month where, like I saw on your Facebook once, you're like, I'm doing this ritual, I think for Jupiter. So was there stuff like that where it was like, okay, well, I know the full moon is going to be in this. So I know that since I'm manifesting, I should do A, B, C, and D. Maybe you can share a specific.
You are on it. Absolutely.
I'm interested.
So there's a wonderful book that I love that I highly recommend to everybody by a great guy named Jason Miller. It's called Financial Sorcery. And in Financial Sorcery, Jason Miller talks about Jupiter magic, and specifically Jupiter, not just the planet and like the gods, so like Jove, Zeus, is Jupiter, is like this force of expansion and benevolence and good luck and all of this stuff, which I never knew. I never really understood well enough about Jupiter until I read Financial Sorcery. And he gives these beautiful, they're called Jupiter glyphs, where there's a glyph for manifesting a specific sum that I always use. There's a glyph for entrepreneurial success. There's a glyph I actually put it on my website, Bad Witches, for viral social media sharing. So that glyph is on Bad Witches. And all of these glyphs like channel and activate the power of Jupiter. And I think Jason created them in working with one of his artist friends. So they're just a wonderful resource, and I use them. I put them on my altar. I put them in my mojo bags. So I made a mojo bag for the sum for $10,000 with all of these Jupiterian associations and sigils and incense. Like I burned white sage. That's a Jupiter thing. I set out a dinner for Jupiter. So Jupiter is sort of like, I think of him as like kind of like Big Papa, like a sort of a grandfatherly, businessy type, like jolly, obviously, type dude. So I got him a steak dinner. So I ordered a beautiful steak dinner and sat down and prayed to him, like invoked his name, chanted his name, had my candles going, my sage, told him about all the wonderful things he had done for me so far that year, thanked him for that, and just like really communed with him and told him about what I was trying to do with my launch and that I would really love his help, and then praised Jove. He gave me his help. And I did do that ritual on a Thursday, which is Jupiter's day, Thursday of a waxing moon, right? Because the waxing moon is for attraction and manifesting, whereas waning moons are wonderful, actually, for shadow work and for clearing blocks. I did do that. And right now, a new component that's been coming into my magic that I'm pretty excited about is I've been feeling very called to work with Mercury Hermes Thoth, who also in my mind has a lot of association actually with Jesus Christ and with, paradoxically, with Christ and the devil at the same time, right? Because wow. Hermes is the god of the crossroads, of the cross. And the devil, you sell your soul to the devil at the crossroads. And who did they crucify on a cross? Anyways, right. I think of the cross as like the meeting place of all worlds, right? And when I think of what Hermes is, like the god of communication, god of travel, commerce, the god of the tarot deck, right? Like Aleister Crowley's Book of Thoth, Hermes. It just struck me really hardcore one day that Hermes, Christ, Thoth, whatever, is a name for the implicate order. So I don't know if you've ever heard of like David Bohm or but there's this like physicist, there's an awesome physicist named David Bohm, and he came up with this theory about how underlying the physical reality that we see, there's something called the implicate order, which is this sort of, I don't even know how to describe it exactly, but it's like this collection of like possibilities that could manifest. And I just realized, oh, well, that's what the crossroads is. It's like this area of immense possibility. Like you could go this way, you could go that way, anything could happen. So anyways, I've been in cultivating this deep relationship with, I'll just call him Mercury for short right now, with Mercury. And I've been painting the tarot deck. So I have a Marseille tarot deck. I'm really into Jodorowsky. Are you familiar with Alejandro Jodorowsky?
I love the book Psychomagic. It's just like amazing.
Yeah, I am top to bottom obsessed with Jodorowsky. And so painting the tarot cards and giving them as an offering to Mercury and starting to do, I think especially I was drawn to do that because I'm in this, I'm in a foreign land and I'm a traveler. So it's technically right now I'm like at the mercy of Mercury, who rules foreign travel. And of course, the internet and all of these things are very mercurial. So I've been propitiating Mercury and talking to him and praying to him and invoking him and giving him these offerings of tarot cards. And the more that I do that, the more my creative unconscious is really coming alive. And the more I'm becoming able to read tarot cards, read omens, read signs, it's just fantastic. Mercury is fantastic. So I'm about to do a project with an artist friend of mine where we create Mercury glyphs for people to use.
Do you think that most successful people, if not all successful people, are working on their spirituality and really pushing it to that next level, which I feel like is necessary?
100%. Absolutely, yes. And when I saw that question, when you kindly sent it to me to look at, the first thought that jumped into my mind was about how we live in a society that is saturated by magic. And the only thing is that most people don't understand how to use magic for liberatory purposes instead of enslaving purposes. So all of branding and advertising, which I, of course, use myself. I have little logos and whatever. That's sigil magic. Like, it's obviously sigil magic. And there's just a way in which there's certain symbols and certain, on one, how do I say this concisely? Like, on one level, like, that's so much of what magic is this mercurial usage of symbols to put ideas and images and activate archetypes in other people's minds, right? So the Nike company, for example, straight up took the name of a Greek goddess of victory, uses this little dash symbol to suggest, speed and success, and broadcasts this image of winning. Anyways, I'm sort of off the topic of your question, but like our society completely runs on magic, and people just don't like to call it that because they like to imagine that they're like scientific materialists or something. but like nobody is. Like there's maybe like 2 people who are actually like truly atheist scientists. Yeah.
Did you notice any direct links? I'm sure you did, between you practicing orgasmic meditation or studying it and your ability to manifest and to be creative and to whatever you want to share about that would be awesome.
Fascinating question.
Or you can
Yes.
dispute anything I've said because I'm just making my own assumptions based off of my knowledge base.
Well, you know what was really interesting is in the immediate period, so I'm not actively practicing orgasmic meditation right now. I think I'm sort of still integrating because I was in depth with the thing. Like I lived in an ohm house. I was like helping to run the orgasmic meditation community in Pittsburgh. And I could definitely like sense the intense magic of that practice. And to me, the biggest magic that I immediately got was that even having grown up with like this weird father who took me to all of these like pagan coven things, I just thought that the goddess was like, you know, like, okay, we're going to talk about the creative force of the universe. Like it's a goddess, not just a god, because women's lib happened in the 70s and we're going to have potlucks and this is really boring. Like I was just bored by that idea by the time that I was like an adult, right? But orgasmic meditation made me realize, like, oh, Shakti, like this sexual orgasmic force in my body, that is the goddess. That's where she is. And one time I was being stroked. This was trippy as hell. I was being stroked, and I hadn't slept well the night before, and I was in this like hypnagogic kind of in and out state. And as my stroker was stroking me, I had this feeling that the strokes were like the shape of a seashell, like a conch shell. Like he was touching me, but instead of like just touching me, like he was outlining the shape of a conch shell, and then he was outlining the shape of a waterfall, and then it was the shape of a rose, and I could actually feel these shapes like hovering above my body, like these very conventionally like feminine type of shapes. There was a butterfly, like, and it was so trippy, and I wasn't on anything. And I realized that like the electrical energy from my genitals was actually creating these shapes, what in the astral whatever, and that I was like, oh my gosh, my pussy makes seashells. Like I can never look at a seashell the same way because I'm like, I know you. My genitals emit an energy that produces your shape. Right. You know, and I feel the same way about butterflies, waterfalls, and roses. So there's like this, like, that was like, whoa. As for manifestation, my manifestation sucked when I was actually involved with the community, which I don't know exactly what the reason for that is. My own bullshit, everybody else's bullshit, I don't know. But I do know that after here I am in this integration phase, and that my sex certainly did open up a lot, and I certainly did clear out a lot of layers of shame and all that stuff. So now my manifestation is banging. So yeah.
Do you have any time management tips, especially when you're doing so many things that aren't exactly the same, like all these different projects, and then you have like someone like me sending you an email, can you do an interview, and that's like just a random thing to throw in there. How do you keep it organized? Do you use any apps or
Absolutely, great question. So for me, I have to have like large blocks of time in order to dive into anything. So I do all of my Skype. You're like the same way. So I do all of my Skype conversations and getting interviewed, being interviewed, coaching people, being coached. I do all of that first thing in the morning. So because I used to do it, I used to schedule those for the afternoon or the evening, but then like my mind would never relax because I would be like, well, I can't go too deep into writing this article because I'll have to stop at 2 p.m. and get on the call with so-and-so. So that was like, that didn't work for me. But if I do it first thing in the morning, then it's cool. I get this energetic charge from talking to somebody awesome. And then I go and so usually So calm myself down. So I practiced something called GTD, getting things done. By the way, David Allen, totally a witch. Such a witchy guy, David Allen.
All right.
I'm obsessed with GTD. I do it. I've done it for at least like seven years, maybe even longer. And that's the only way that I get my head to shut up. So, you make a whole list, you break down your list into have you done it?
No, I'm so curious. I mean, I write lists. I have like 1,000 lists.
Well, getting things done will help you. I mean, I wouldn't be nearly as functional as I am without it, because it's all about like breaking down, like looking at things on your list and then asking yourself, what is the very next little physical action that I need to do to complete this? So like, let's say I write down like, write an article, write a viral article. I'm like, okay, well, the next physical action is open my notebook and write down 5 possible titles. And I have to I put that on my to-do list instead of write a viral article, because I'll just like look at that, like I don't know how to do that. I guess that's not going to happen. But I do know how to open my notebook and write down 5 possible titles, right? So it's that sort of like breaking it down. So I do GTD, and I block my time, and try to only answer. I fail at this. I get this wrong, but I try to only answer my email on Wednesdays. So I have this autoresponder that tells people like, look, I'm so glad you messaged me. I will definitely respond to you on Wednesday. I'm definitely not going to respond to you at any other time. I will like think that I'm supposed to be responding to people all the time. So anyways, I block that off. So setting boundaries is a big part of it. Like, and I got a big pushback when I set that boundary. Like, I got all sorts of people saying things to me like, I used to like you, but then you said you wouldn't answer your mail except on Wednesdays, and then I felt so betrayed. And I was like, really? Well, you can get the hell away from me, because if me answering your messages on Wednesdays isn't good enough for you, right, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, unless you're my mom or my best friend, there is no reason why I should answer your message any other time. Anyways, so getting assistance is also the most wonderful thing in the world. And for those of you who can't afford to pay assistance, well, if you are in college currently, this may be difficult. But as soon as you graduate college, call up your college and be like, I want interns. Oh, there's more. Well, I mean, I drink a lot of green juice every day. I take ginseng, maca. But yeah, I think maybe that's the essence of my time management.
And is it a physical to-do list, or do you do it online?
I've always been an index card girl, so it's all notebooks and index cards for me, because like I look at a screen so much, I can't add another screen. Like, I don't know, if I can hold the cards, that seems to help me. And there seems to like there's something else floating in my mind about like some key part of this. Well, lately I've been neglecting what is a key part, which is making time to do things like exercise and go to parties and things like that. So I don't want to super glamorize like insane work days, because they're not sustainable, right? So putting that on my calendar, I also kind of live by my calendar. Like, my calendar like is a half of my brain that if I did not have, I would be like, a blind woman wandering in the wilderness. So putting things on my calendar, I just need things to tell me what to do, because I don't know what to do all the time. So if I've thought about it in advance and I've planned it out and I've figured it out, like, I don't do that because I'm uptight or whatever. I do that because literally if I don't plan it out, I'll just like piss away a day like clicking things on Facebook.
Would you say that you have like a habit of work, like you wake up at the same time every day, like you have a set schedule? You eat at the same time, or
Yeah, so generally my habit these days is to wake up at around 6 or 7 a.m., have some Skype conversations, or teach my class, which I do via webinar. Um, I go to this beautiful coffee shop. Well, I do some ritual work, so I give offerings, and then I go to this beautiful coffee shop which has this like wonderful garden across the street from me, and I sit and I drink coffee. I drink these beautiful coconut cappuccinos. I recommend Bali to everybody.
yeah.
It's endlessly great, and I sit there with my computer, and I will, on most days, I will be concentrated on writing an essay. So I'll do that, and then when it's fun break time, then I go on Facebook, but I go specifically into the groups that I teach, and I see everybody's fun comments, and I answer their questions, and that's my relaxation. And then I'm like, okay, back to business, write for a few more hours, or I have to do things like create opt-in pages, create lead magnets, create like something I have to do this week is create a one sheet. It's called a one sheet to promote myself and to promote Foo to other people who might interview us. So a lot of things like that, and sit there in the coffee shop. And of course, and I usually order food there, so they have wonderful. This is the most wonderful thing about Bali is like I don't have to cook ever because the food is really cheap and it's really good and it's really healthy and it's all the restaurants are beautiful. So that's winning. That's why it was one of the reasons why I recommend digital nomadship to people is just for a pure economic reason of like you have lower overhead and a possible better quality of life.
Yeah.
So I do that, and sometimes I go to the co-working space. So there's a wonderful co-working space here where, like, if I want to be social, I can meet other people and go to workshops, and they have parties and fun stuff. And I'll just maybe go get a massage, maybe go ride my scooter around the island. I mean, it's awesome. And when I complain, like when I get overwhelmed and stressed some days, and I talk to my mom, on the phone, she's like, "Wow, Care, you're sure working in the coal mines there, sitting in your garden with your coconut cappuccino. I feel really bad for you." I'm like, "Thanks, Mom."
Yeah, it happens to everyone. It really does.